So I have to be careful.
They're for a reason. Yes.
You made it in just in the nick of time. So welcome. We also have live stream, so you can hear the microphone, which is also going through the computer. I think every session has that, but just wanted to clarify that I'm used to sending my voice out into a classroom, and so I realize I'm going to have to modulate a little probably in this session since I'm wearing a microphone. So. Is it not working? Oh, just getting it where they can see me. That's nice of you. That's handy. That keeps it from being quite, don't have to stay in one spot quite as much. So welcome. I want to start with a little question that says, you know, should we do a scientific study based on what would happen if we took the first row of tables out of presentations? Where would people sit? Like, would they move even further back? Yeah, it's interesting. It's always the last seats to fill up. So, welcome. I am Rachel Walter. I am the Chief Innovation Officer at AnsrSource. I'm brand new there, so it's still actually a little funny to introduce myself that way. But that's what's up on the screen. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I do have a background as an engineer originally, and then you can see I went through a transition, I guess you would say, from engineering to data analytics and into organizational learning. So I have generally worked at large organizations that are international. If anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I did put the QR code up in the top corner, because I know sometimes it's difficult to remember who all you heard or where all you were in order to accomplish that. So that is a little bit about me. Today, what we're really going to focus on is looking at creating a strategy, gaining, retaining a seat at the table, depending on your situation. And if you guys want a chair, we can. You're not interrupting. We are just now starting. And really kind of taking a look at what AI is doing to our environment in all types of learning and development. So I'm going to ask a question. What if learning was as personalized as, for example, your social media feed, or as accessible as your favorite voice assistant? Who's Team Siri? And Team Google? Oh, and is there another favorite?
Team Nobody.
Team Alexa, Team Nobody. Okay. So imagine what if learning was like that. Like learning, when you picked up your phone and you get whatever you get, in my case, usually a snap from nephews. And when I open the snap, there's going to be, and it's a picture. It never makes any sense. Don't ask me why I get a picture of the dash of the truck or the window of the school bus, because I cannot explain Snapchat to you. But in addition to getting that, I'm going to get a personalized list of videos at the bottom. I don't even know what they're called, reels, who knows. But it shows up. And it's something that is relevant or likely to be relevant to me based on my own likes. What if learning was like that? Wouldn't that be kind of a cool concept? If our phone was smart enough to know what we needed to learn or wanted to learn. So what do these terms mean to you? What does personalized learning mean to you? Learning what you need to learn?
When you need to learn it.
Learning what you need to learn, what you want to learn when you need to learn it. So time bound. Okay, so provided to you in a way that you actually enjoy learning. Yes?
Well, I think it's the context that it puts the learning into, and people learn from stories and examples. Create a story or an example that's more relevant to you.
Okay, so personalizing would be also delivering a story that's relevant to you as an individual. Yes?
It doesn't waste my time with stuff I already know.
Okay, so personalized learning doesn't waste my time. That's a great one. I hate wasting time. Yes?
I'm going back to the keynote this morning that would fit your cognitive style.
Okay, so personalizing also means my cognitive style. Perfect.
Well, more kind of visual. I'm a visual learner, so give me some cartoon book, something like that.
Okay, so personalizing for you would be like a cartoon book, something fun, something visual, probably quick and easy and entertaining. What do we have back here? Okay, so personalized learning means I don't want to have to document what I learned. Okay, so not necessarily the compliance mindset. What about accessibility? What does accessibility say to you? Yes?
The content is available in a way that everyone can engage with it.
Okay, so it's available in a way that everybody can engage with it, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else. Okay?
Somebody that's hearing impaired, blind.
Okay, so hearing impairment, visual impairment. What else?
Equitable.
So it's equitable, okay? And
It's into life, your schedule.
okay, so it fits in. So it's basically like if you consider you go up to the door of a building, if you're in a wheelchair, there is a wheelchair ramp. So it fits into your life in the things that you're trying to do. You don't have to make adjustments for it. I like that. Does any, yes?
As a international, for international, adjust the levels of reading. I mean, what I mean, like the first grade or ninth grade,
Okay.
reading.
So it adjusts itself as well to your own reading abilities, English as a second language, or whatever language you're doing your training in. For me, if I was doing it in French, I would hope it would make it about a 5-year-old level.
Might be that it's accessible at the moment of need, just in time, and maybe just enough, just in the form of it.
Okay, so accessibility can even mean just in time, just in the form that I need. So kind of coming back to your comment earlier about personalization for you would also be when, like it's delivered when I need it. What about L&D efficiency? What does that say to you? Learning and development efficiency.
Being able to do it faster.
Okay, so we always want to be able to do things faster. Yes?
None of the extraneous information.
We don't want to have any of the extraneous information, so keep all the fluff out. Yes?
The L&D team can create it and keep it up to date.
Okay, so it means the L&D team can really manage the revisions, the updates. Excellent.
Can be easily applied.
Okay, so it can be easily applied. Excellent. So we're still in this, we're not saying that we're taking away its effectiveness. None of these answers said that, but every one of them did say making it more efficient. Anything else on that one? How about the last one, data-driven insights? You might remember my MBA was in data analytics, so that's kind of like, I love that one too, but why is data-driven analytics on this list of why AI is dominating?
How people are processing metrics on, is the training doing what you think it's doing, or
Okay.
is it doing something else?
Okay, so this would be looking at metrics of the learner themselves. Is the learning actually achieving the desired outcome, and looking at that? Yes?
That particular one could support each of the others, further personalize it to increase accessibility, efficiency, data helps.
So we can actually use data to help the other pillars stand up, to tell us whether or not the other pillars are actually stable. Yes?
And might have an aspect of big data driven, drawing from many different sources.
Okay, so we might have big data in there. We may be pulling from different systems, different platforms, and trying to make sense of that data. Yes?
The first three pillars are what we do.
Okay, so the first three pillars, this being our what, that being why. Why we're actually doing the first three pillars. What else?
We could use data to help us understand best practices for what we're doing. Because until you implement a learning solution, you need the gift of time to tell you how it's being received, its effectiveness. You could use data from the large language model to see what else is out there and what best practices are for what you should be shooting for, aspiring to.
Okay, so in this case, I think I heard two types of ways you could use data. One, by evaluating what else is out there and what you could be aiming at, but then the other one also saying how effective is what I'm delivering compared to what's out there. Is that accurate? Excellent.
I was thinking alignment, to make sure that aligning my instruction is actually aligned to what I'm trying to assess and evaluate, and that I'm actually meeting all those things that I can measure it and validate it. But again, I'm a data nerd. But I see alignment there when I see.
Okay.
Make sure that my outcomes and everything are actually aligned and coming together as they should.
Right, so we're actually then using data to make sure that we're on parallel paths as opposed to on either divergent or convergent, which also wouldn't necessarily be good paths. Excellent. Any others on why AI is dominating our conversation? Did I miss anything up here?
Data-driven will also show gaps.
Okay, so data will actually show us gaps both in what we create and in what we're learning if we happen to be the learners. That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Anything you guys think we've missed so far in here?
I think another aspect of this that's dominating our conversation, the emotional aspect of that, a lot of fear around AI, what it may do.
Okay, so we do. We have a lot of fear around this. I actually had that conversation, a little bit of that conversation earlier with Mike. I was talking about an article I read this morning from AIEd, which was actually about DEI. And they were talking about belonging and how sometimes we feel like if we give belonging to another group or another individual, I'm losing it. If I give a right, I'm losing a right. So it's that mindset of scarcity. And we were actually having the discussion about how that same mindset is sometimes being applied to AI. We see what AI is taking away from us instead of seeing what AI is giving into the larger population. It's a good point. Yes.
From our lunch conversation, I can't help but think about guidelines. Like, how does this work overall for organizations? What sort of training would be covered under AI, just general guidelines.
Okay, so then creating guidelines for how we're using AI inside training and learning. Excellent.
There's a lot of buzz and it's rapidly evolving, so we're not sure exactly what it can do.
AI is definitely very dynamic right now, so it is changing, growing every single day. You're seeing something different. I guess ChatGPT is coming out as a search engine in like a week, so that'll be another new area. So you're right. There is a lot of buzz, a lot of hype. How much of it is real and how much of it is just hype? That's a good point. Excellent. I'll jump to the next slide. So what if we think about being the learner and I say, what's in it for me? Why would we want to adapt the use of AI and L&D from a learner perspective? We'll get to our perspective as creators afterward, but from a learner perspective, what's in it for the learner? Okay, agility. So how is agility in it for the learner?
It's something new that they have to adapt to, like all of us.
Okay, so the actual use of AI in their job and things like that, they need to be able to learn how to use that, to learn how to respond to what the changes it's making in the environment. Excellent. And to feel comfortable there. So competence is usually part confidence and part actual ability.
The statement suggests that we're talking about someone who's optimized
Mhm.
And I don't know that we are optimized, and so if it's fitting past behavior, it may be fitting and predicting and serving us up with things that are based on past behavior, but that's not necessarily optimized.
Excellent point. So there we're looking at saying it's giving us what we feel we want, what we think we want, as opposed to necessarily optimizing for what we need. And that's actually a critical component that we're going to get back to when we look at it from the how do we develop learning, how do we develop training material, because you're right. Just because it's showing me cute dogs when I scroll through Snapchat does not necessarily mean that that's going to be helpful to me in whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish with Snapchat, which is nothing, by the way. What else? What else would you say? Think about yourself. Put yourself when you're learning something new. So you're here today learning from a whole lot of speakers. Yes.
I think what you might be alluding to is like if I have a certain learning approach that I take to any particular endeavor, could, debate whether or not the idea of the learning style is accurate or not, you can cater the learning to that approach. If I'm someone who won't read the manuals of the VCR or whatever like that before setting up, and just go plunk around and do it, you could cater all learning experiences to that modality that I prefer.
Excellent. So catering to that modality, as he put it, is really one of the absolute benefits of AI when you come at it from a learner perspective, because it adapts your environment to be something that you are likely to listen to. So there's an old statement, I think it's Confucius, that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, something like that. And this kind of takes that, thousands of years later into the future, but takes that concept to a whole new piece that says, I'm willing and able if you'll provide me something the way that I want to see it. Yes, we've got a...
The AI could be really for the performer. So imagine if you had an AI listening and has all your performance data for that day. Say you're a call center rep, and it gives you a report on here's the 3 things you did well as a call center rep. Here's the 3 things you could improve on to improve your score. You could do this for a nurse, but again, it's turning over a lot of data to an algorithm to give you that coaching and feedback.
Yes.
I haven't seen that incorporated in the company yet, but every performer needs coaching and feedback on their performance in a daily way. Most people have self-efficacy and do that themselves. They write down 3 things I did well, 3 things I can do myself. So do you really need AI to do that? No. You coach people do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Just, metacognition. How am I doing my elements?
So I want to encourage you to come tomorrow to my talk tomorrow on skills, because we're going to actually unpack a little bit about how we self-assess and whether or not we're accurate with our self-assessments. But just for the live stream audience to kind of recap that for a second, is what he's saying is that AI would be able to essentially take a look at the data and suggest places where you performed well and places where you need to learn and get more coaching. We had one more comment back here.
So, I'm thinking from a learner's perspective, what's in it for me? It really depends on the maturity of the AI. So, right now, I would not trust an AI to cater my learning to me. We know the learning styles stuff has been completely debunked. So if it chooses that, it's likely to choose it because it's all over the internet. So that's where these LLMs are developing their recommendations from. That's not going to work. Now, theoretically, you can figure out what really works for a person, and it's going to have some benefits. But I think in the short term, it's going to have some harms.
Yeah, so what we heard there is that there's the potential that it actually misrepresents. And I call it AI, large language models, I call it they lie to you. I know that's not the appropriate term. We're supposed to say they hallucinate. But when you're using it, it feels like somebody's lying to you. That's exactly what it feels like. Like it has lied to you and led you down a misleading path. But I'm going to go back to this gentleman's comment earlier about what if I wanted to get this information at a 5th grade reading level or a 9th grade reading level, or I wanted to specify, please provide the learning to me in a way that is relevant to my understanding of the language that is presented in. That's a perfect application, and it's something that AI is currently capable of today. And so that's why we need to be looking at, that's one of the things that I really encourage people, is look at what are the opportunities. And yes, it would be lovely if we could have it to where it entirely adapted to our learning experience. Although you're going to find this is also where then I personally get concerned, because I feel like our sense of curiosity and our digging for information sometimes is a big part of the learning process. So I'm not sure I'm sold on us having 100% adapting learning that adapts to me. But what it can do today, and what you can currently already be using it to do when you're developing your learning, is things along the lines of, can you now say, I have people, so in the organizations that I work with most of the time, there are many people for whom English is a 2nd or 3rd language. And so I can say, okay, let's evaluate what is a way that we could describe this for each of those populations. Today, we're still a little rudimentary, and they may have to choose. I want it in 5th grade reading level or undergrad level or PhD level, but at least they can get there. And that is one of the benefits. Let's take a look at just one step further in this, and that is understanding that it's changing over time. So that means that I may have a specific desire to, if you ever listen to my Audible, you will go crazy. I listen to Audible at somewhere between 1.5 and 2.0. Like, I grew up in the Northeast and I like that fast pace of speech. But when I talk, because most of the time in my professional career, I've been talking to non-native speakers, I speak slowly. So AI might listen to me speak and think that I want my videos played at that speed. That would be incorrect. And that is where we get into the piece that it has to be dynamic. I have to be able to change what it provides to me. And we as developers of learning need to be using that information. There may be times that I want to have it delivered in a different language, or I may have a slightly different need. So it is important to remember that although it does adapt with you and can adapt with you, you adapt as well. So we need to make sure that we're constantly developing from that perspective. I used this example of accessible buildings earlier. I personally believe, although I don't think that there's any data that backs this up, I just believe it, that learning is a fundamental human right. And I'm personally pretty passionate about this. I think that a lot of times we don't even realize how many things have become accessible, like the examples that you guys were giving earlier about accessibility. And now today we take so many of those for granted. Like, we absolutely take the fact that voice recognition, that's a great one. So voice recognition is AI. In most cases, those are now long-running AI tools that are sitting there. So for you or me, increases our efficiency, right? I can say, hey, Siri or Google or whatever, trying to make sure my phone doesn't respond, so I was trying to be careful about that. And I can be glad that it does that. Now imagine that you didn't have the ability to type or write, and you wanted to participate in a class. Voice recognition allows you to respond to the comments that I'm making here, the questions I'm asking, a written quiz. Maybe I don't have, maybe I've got a hearing issue and I can't have video. We take for granted now that I can read the transcript. That's also adaptability that comes from making learning accessible. We covered this just a little bit earlier. If you think of routine and repetitive tasks, what do you wish you could get rid of in your job today?
Everybody's favorite email.
Okay, email.
My email.
We want to have somebody else managing our email. What else? Yes.
I'd like to get rid of all my accounting responsibilities.
Okay, you want to get rid of all your accounting. I hope you're not a CPA. You want to get rid of all your accounting responsibilities. What else? Okay, you want to get rid of meetings. I'm hope meetings that don't matter, or all meetings in general because you don't like people.
Some meetings are more meaningful than others.
Okay, so you want to get rid of all the meetings that aren't meaningful. Got it. Excellent. How about course enrollments? How about running reports? How about, like, all of those things can actually be handled with AI, and they can be handled with AI today. You can actually enroll all of your users without actually having a human intervene already. We're not doing it in most cases, but it's perfectly possible to do it. And it's not even that expensive to accomplish. What do you wish you could do more of? If you freed up that time because you weren't doing email, you weren't in meaningless meetings, you weren't doing your accounting and finance responsibilities, what would you do with that extra time?
Develop more creating and engaging learning solutions.
Okay, you develop more creative and engaging learning solutions. So what if you could dream, what would one of those be? What would you love to be able to do that you just can't find the time to do?
Well, I just would say personally that get bogged down in the rhythm of a day with emails and meetings, like you said. You know, we all know that creative thinking and ideation time, you need larger blocks of time uninterrupted to be effective. And so the reality of working and I'm doing those things a lot at the end of the day or after hours when you have that free time.
Okay, so in this case, some of it is actually a matter of time boxing, of saying that the little rote tasks kind of take away that creativity. You end up trying to do the creative things in the evening when you're then tired and worn down, and that's not such an effective method. Yes?
Find as either as a learning development or a business, find the right thing and also do things first time right.
Okay, so find the right things to do and do it right the first time you do it. For the business, yes. Yeah, yeah. And you guys especially if you come in to my session tomorrow, you'll learn that that is a passion of mine. Like, my entire career has been focused around achieving business results. Now, I get it. If you're in academia, it's possible. I don't know. I've not ever been in academia. It's possible that we learn for the sake of learning in academia. But in the corporate environment, in the work environment, we learn because we need to achieve a goal. We need to achieve something that is a result which is measurable. And so here, that's the piece that is the strategic component. So we had creative. We're creating engaging types of, imagine if you had the space in your day to just go through and go, what if I created a simulation about this topic? What would that look like? Like, how could I do that? That'd be fun, right? That'd be way more fun than creating a stupid course outline and a curriculum. Way more fun. But we get bogged down in those things over here that we have to do because it's part of the process. We could be creative. We could be strategic. We could actually be saying to our stakeholders, you know what? I can help you achieve that sales result, that safety goal, that whatever it happens to be in your organizations, if we had that space. So the end one is the results, and that piece ties directly back into that, is we need to be looking at the results that matter. So what are you measuring today? Give me a couple of examples of how you measure learning effectiveness today. Yes?
Butts and seats.
Butts and seats. We love butts and seats. We love saying we trained 750 people this year. What's another metric that we use? And by the way, when you apply for awards through a lot of L&D organizations, they're asking for those as well. So what are a few others?
Pre and post test.
Pre and post tests, like how well did you score before and after? Mm-hmm.
I kind of go back to my alignment, is what I taught to what they needed to know. Did I actually do it in the manner they needed it?
Mm-hmm.
And what is my outcome? I actually achieve it?
Yeah.
Measure it. Or measure
Yeah.
it. That's my
Yes.
measure it.
Yeah. So our data nerd over here, self-professed, I'm not calling, she said this. So she is actually looking for alignment between what she was trying to achieve. So if, for example, we were trying to achieve 25% more sales closed, did my training actually achieve that? Did I actually talk about closing? Did I actually talk about the customers? Did I actually talk about the situation that they were invested in? And then did they close 25% more? What else?
The time it took to train.
The time it took to train. There are sometimes reasons for this. So for example, in Spain, in France, in Quebec, you will find, in Spain and France, you will find that you get paid by the government for the number of hours that people are trained. In Quebec, you get fined if you don't meet a minimum. So, you know, it's two sides of the same coin. So yes, so there are times when you could say that's kind of a low quality type of data measure that you're looking at, as opposed to the results, but there may be extenuating circumstances for why you would want to do that.
The time to competent performance.
Yes, time to competence. So looking at that performance. And that's one of the ways that AI can really help you. So imagine in that sales situation that I was just talking about, you have salesforce.com, you have your LMS, and hopefully some type of training management system that sits there and shows when you have your trainings conducted, etc. And you have Salesforce sitting over here, and maybe you have your business warehouse or something. With AI, it is actually relatively easy to tie those together, pull that data, and measure that amount of alignment. How many are doing it today? Our data nerd over here. And I personally know of one. Like, I know of one person who in the organizations that I've worked with, I know of one that is doing that. But it is completely possible. We're so busy doing this that we're not stepping back and getting the time and the space to be over here and look at it from that strategic perspective and using it that way. So just a little bit of data, I'm a self-professed data nerd too, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on the data, because I also recognize that a lot of people do not appreciate it that much. But what I do want you guys to think about is, we'll do a little show of hands in the room. How many people remember CD-based e-learning? Oh, we almost got everybody, almost, okay. How many people remember when we felt like interactive learning was really cool? Like, we started adding buttons that you could click inside the learning. Like, that was pretty impressive, right? Exactly. Yeah. Those were like, exactly. PowerPoint's a great example. When we went to where you could actually do PowerPoint and then you could click the button and it moved to the next slide, and you weren't standing at the front of a room changing a piece of plastic film on top of a projector, You know, I mean, that's just, yes, yeah. And at the risk of dating myself, my very first learning and development role was I worked in engineering at Mercury Marine, and I converted us over to doing CDs for our original equipment manufacturers, our OEMs, for the installation manuals. And you would have thought the world was ending. I don't know. But the OEMs thought it was ending, and the people who were paying the bills inside Mercury thought it was great. We weren't putting all those printed books out every day. So the reason I say that is because we're right here. That's 2030 projected. And what we're looking at there is that machine learning grows exponentially. Some of the others are also growing, and I believe that we are going to see an even greater growth than this. Like, I think we don't know how fast it's going to change. One of the ways that I would say is in a survey, you can find this on Statista if you want to look it up, but they were actually looking through data and saying how many people are using AI, generative AI, in their daily life today. Self-reported. Again, show up tomorrow if you want to hear about self-reporting errors. But the number came up at 57%, and this is last year, the end of last year. They then looked at L&D teams and said, how many are using it? Guesses? I think it was 13. I think it was 13% was the actual number. And so then you go, oh crap, we're about to be stuck over here in 2020 if we don't get our act together. If we continue to be scared of what AI is going to do, instead of finding ways. Technology is just a tool. It is just a tool in your tool belt. Learn how to use that tool. You wouldn't use a pair of pliers to hammer in a nail. So look at what AI can do for you and then actually go ahead, because we don't want L&D to be stuck over here, which is kind of where we are right now. We don't want to be stuck over there. So we've got a little activity for you, and that is your commitment to yourself, not to me, because the likelihood that we ever talk again is pretty slim. Unless you come into the session tomorrow or connect with me on LinkedIn, or your Mike, who interviewed me a while back. So now we're bosom buddies. So this is just, what is it out of everything you've heard, not just in my session, but any of the other AI sessions that you've heard so far? What is it that you want to do? Give yourself a date by when you will do that. And by the way, if you don't put a date in there, you won't do it. And what do you need in order to be able to do that? That's another tip. If you don't put that in there, you won't do the steps that it takes to get this done. So if, for example, I wanted to say, I want to create a large language model out of all of the RFPs that my organization has done so that we can automate RFP creation, then I would put that in my goal line. I would say, I want that by July 1st. What do I need in order to do that? Well, first I'm going to need to get with whoever does contracts, because I don't have our RFPs. In my case, I would probably need to get with my head of product, because I don't know how to create an LLM. So that would be a big one there. So there's two things that I absolutely have to have. And probably then I would say that I probably need somebody who is figuring out where we get the budget, if there is a budget requirement, to pay for that. I would put those in my 3, and I would jot a little date down. So if I want to get with my head of product, I need to do that beginning of next week. I need to get with whoever is responsible for contracts by middle of next week. And then I need to get with my CFO by the end of next week, when I start having an idea from those two people, how big is this thing I'm choosing? So we'll just take a minute, let people jot down a couple of things. I see some typing furiously and handwriting furiously for those of you who are joining on the live stream, so that you know that we haven't frozen. So what can you tell about this picture that's up on the screen? This is our conclusion. That was made by AI. And that is exactly the thing that I want to leave the session with. AI has its limitations. Whether you want to call it hallucinating, or you want to call it lying, or you want to call it completely misrepresenting any language that it puts up there, the reason that this is up here is because you absolutely 100% need human intervention in anything. So earlier today, we were in a session in this room, and they were showing some of the assessment generator tools and those types of things. AI can learn, but we as humans are responsible for teaching it. So we have to own that responsibility. We need to teach it. We need to check. We need to verify. We should not just blindly trust that it is going to put out I believe my statement was giving it the notes from the slide deck, telling it about my audience who was coming to it, and saying, generate an image that represents this for my conclusion slide. And it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I can see it's got some visionary elements in it. It's got, you know, obviously building components. We did talk about buildings and accessibility. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So it's got the ISB sun. So yeah. Okay. So it's actually done a reasonably good job. So now I'm even more impressed. I hadn't picked up on that. There is. And there's a lot you could do with this, and that's the same thing to take away about AI. There is a lot that we can do with AI, but we need to own the human responsibility for doing that, for verifying it, and for using it as a tool in our tool belt. Openly accept that it's there, because it's not going away. It's going to get bigger. It's going to grow. And we need to embrace how can we use it effectively. Thank you very much for the interactivity today. That was wonderful. Appreciate it. And thank you to our live stream audience. Sorry that you didn't get to participate in person, but thank you for being there.